They can deal with you in just about any way they want.
Well, they own the money system.
Right, but the one thing he said they cannot deal with is exposure. No conspiracy can deal with exposure. Once the truth is out and the people understand, then they have problems. And I'm saying that the power of any government is in the people.
They've sold you a lie. They've convinced you there isn't enough for all of us, that the earth is too crowded, its resources too thin, and its bounty too fragile. But scarcity is a lie, and I'll prove it to you. It's one of the greatest cons in human history. They've made a planet of 8 billion believe the pie is too small while they feast on banquets that could feed cities. Look around you. The ground beneath your feet could feed nations, yet people go hungry. The sun could power entire continents, yet they tell us energy is scarce. Scarcity isn't just a lie. It's their weapon, designed to keep you desperate, fearful, and fighting for their crumbs. If they could bottle the very air you're breathing, they'd sell it back to you at a premium. But thank God that's beyond their reach. And the most outrageous part, we believed them. We fell for their story that this resource-rich earth somehow can't sustain the people living on it. Their entire empire hinges on us never questioning that lie, never realizing that scarcity is the spell they cast to keep us trapped in their game. But here's the truth. Scarcity isn't a natural state. It's an engineered reality. The fear, the desperation, the endless rat race for survival, all of it is part of a game designed to keep you in your place. They manufacture scarcity and sell it back to you, creating the illusion of limits where none exist. There's always been enough food, enough energy, enough space for everyone to thrive. The problem isn't the Earth's resources, it's the bottlenecks they've built, the artificial shortages they've created, and the monopolies they control. They've convinced you that life is a zero-sum game where your gain is someone else's loss. But that narrative is just another part of their spell. It doesn't have to be this way. It never did. And nowhere is this manipulation more evident than in the food you eat, or struggle to eat. The soil beneath your feet has the potential to feed the world many times over, yet millions go hungry every single day. Why? Because food isn't treated as a basic human right, it's treated as a commodity, a profit center for the few. Did you know that some seeds are patented? Yes, patented, forcing farmers to buy them year after year, leading farmers to a cycle of dependency. And when the small farmers don't have any money left, industrial agriculture steps in, wiping out biodiversity and paving the way for monoculture farming, an ecological time bomb. Global supply chains, tightly controlled by corporate cartels, are fragile by design. A single disruption, whether a war or a weather anomaly, can plunge entire regions into famine. Coincidence? Maybe. But these shortages keep the food prices high. And if you think water, a resource more fundamental than food, is safe, think again. The same forces that monetized your plate are coming for your tap. Privatization has turned what should be a universal human right into a luxury item, sold back to you at obscene profits. Now governments and corporations buy up water rights, drain aquifers, and bottle what should flow freely. The consequences are devastating. These aren't accidents. They're part of the same game. Every crisis, every conflict, every heartbreak becomes a revenue stream, another opportunity to consolidate power. They've weaponized the most basic elements of survival, and until we see through this lie of scarcity, we remain players trapped in their rigged casino. Energy scarcity is another fraud. The world doesn't need to rely on oil and fossil fuels. Clean, renewable technologies, solar, wind, even free energy devices exist. Or rather, they did. Every so often you'll hear whispers about suppressed patents, mysterious disappearances of inventors, or the sudden shutdown of promising energy startups. This isn't paranoia. It's the reality of a system that cannot afford to let you escape its grip. Dependence on fossil fuels isn't just about profits for oil barons. It's about control. Every oil crisis you've lived through was a carefully choreographed performance, designed to inflate prices and remind you of your vulnerability. When gas prices soar, you're not just paying more at the pump. You're being reminded that your mobility, your livelihood, and your freedom depend on forces far beyond your control. This is the first brick in the wall they've built around you. Scarcity isn't just a tool, it's the foundation of their power. And they sold you a dream, a house with a white picket fence, a symbol of your success and independence. But look closer, and you'll see how housing has become the modern feudal system, chains made of brick and debt. The scarcity isn't accidental, it's a finely tuned instrument of control. When you're terrified of losing your home, when each mortgage payment or rent check feels like a lifeline, you're far more likely to play by their rules. They tell you it's simple economics, supply and demand, land shortages, natural price hikes. But take a step back and it's clear. This scarcity is engineered. Zoning laws, restrictive green belts, and endless regulations ensure that the best land remains off limits. Who benefits? The same corporate giants, developers, and investment firms that snatch up properties and inflate the cost of living. In cities worldwide, foreign investors collect homes like trading cards, leaving whole neighborhoods hollowed out, unaffordable and inaccessible to those who just want a place to live. It's not a shortage. It's a heist, with housing held hostage by those who profit from your desperation. And don't worry if you can't buy in, you will get funneled into the rental market. Another rigged game. Rent siphons your wealth upward, month after month, leaving you empty-handed in the end. The landlords who once lived next door have been replaced by faceless corporations, pushing rents higher, stacking hidden fees, and evicting tenants without a second thought. You're paying a premium just to stand still, locked into a cycle designed to keep you too drained and distracted to question the system. And did you ever think signing those mortgage papers sets you free? Guess again. A 30-year mortgage is a contract of anxiety, ensuring you'll do whatever it takes to keep the roof over your head. Lose your job. Face a medical crisis. Watch your home slip through your fingers as the bank snatches it back, leaving you with nothing. This isn't just about profit. It's about power. Your debts become their leverage, compelling you to remain a compliant cog in the machine, too scared to step off the treadmill. Ever dreamed of going off-grid or building a sustainable tiny home? They've thought of that too. Zoning laws and building codes form a fortress against alternative living. Every attempt to break free from the conventional model, be it a co-op, an eco-village, or a low-impact dwelling, collides with regulations that serve to keep you locked in their system. Affordable solutions are buried beneath red tape. The message is clear. Live as they dictate, or face being cast out. And what about homelessness, that ever-present spectre haunting city streets? It's not a glitch. It's the ultimate psychological weapon. When there are more empty homes than homeless people, what's the real issue? They need that visible reminder of what awaits those who fall through the cracks. Criminalizing homelessness doesn't solve scarcity. It reinforces it. It scares you into compliance, grateful to pay whatever ransom they demand for the illusion of shelter. In this landscape, your home isn't a sanctuary. It's a battlefield. Every brick, every contract, every regulation is another line in their script, a line you're not meant to question. But now you see it for what it is, a masterpiece of engineered scarcity. And not only is energy the lifeblood of modern society, it fuels your home, your car, your workplace. Every aspect of your life depends on it. And that's exactly why they've turned energy into one of their most insidious tools of control. The scarcity of energy isn't an accident. It's a carefully programmed illusion designed to keep you dependent, fearful, and compliant. The same powers that control your housing, food, and water have cornered the energy market, ensuring that you remain shackled to their system. Ever notice how energy prices spike at just the right moment to make your life miserable? Whether it's a sudden oil shortage, a geopolitical crisis, or a natural disaster, these so-called emergencies always seem to benefit the same players. Oil companies post record profits during every crisis, while you're left deciding whether to fill your gas tank or buy groceries. But here's the dirty secret. Many of these crises are manufactured. They manipulate supply, exploit fear, and use the media to amplify panic. The result? You pay more, you stress more, and you remain ever dependent on their benevolence to keep the lights on. And you've probably heard the pitch. Solar, wind, and other renewable technologies are the key to a sustainable future. And while that's true in theory, the way renewables are being implemented is just another trap. Large-scale, renewable energy projects are increasingly controlled by the same corporations that dominate fossil fuels. They're not interested in liberating you. They're interested in owning the next phase of energy dependency. The decentralization of energy, small-scale solar, wind turbines for individual homes, community microgrids, is deliberately stifled. Why? Because decentralization would empower you to generate your own energy, reducing your dependence on the system. Instead, they funnel billions into centralized projects that keep the power, literally and figuratively, in their hands. Across the globe, billions of people live in energy poverty, unable to afford even basic electricity. In the developed world, energy costs are increasingly unaffordable for lower-income households, forcing them to choose between heating their homes or feeding their families. This isn't just a tragedy, it's a strategy. When energy is scarce or expensive, your options shrink. You're less mobile, less independent, and more likely to accept any solution they offer, no matter how exploitative. The fear of losing access to power keeps you compliant, grateful for whatever crumbs they throw your way. Then there's the push for smart energy systems. Smart meters, smart grids, and smart appliances. On the surface, these technologies promise efficiency and sustainability. But beneath the shiny facade lies a darker truth. These systems are tools of surveillance and control. Every device you connect to the grid becomes a data point, feeding information back to the powers that be. Imagine a world where your energy usage dictates your social standing. Use too much electricity, and your rates spike. Or worse, your access is restricted. This isn't the future, it's the present in places where energy rationing is already being tested. They're not just monitoring you, they're conditioning you to accept a life of austerity while they live in excess. Energy isn't scarce, it's stolen. The technologies to free us exist, but they're hidden, suppressed, and ridiculed. Why? Because independence terrifies them. But now you see it, don't you? The game is rigged, and it's time to call their bluff. If energy is the lifeblood of society, then healthcare is the lifeblood of you. And just like every other resource, it's been hijacked to keep you under control. What should be a fundamental human right, your health and well-being, has been twisted into a profit machine, fueled by your pain, fear, and desperation. Big pharma, insurance giants, and complicit governments all play their roles, ensuring you remain sick enough to buy what they're selling, but never well enough to break free. Let's confront the ugly truth. Curing diseases isn't lucrative, treating them is. Chronic conditions like diabetes, heart disease, and endless autoimmune disorders are gold mines for big pharma. They don't want you cured. They want you managed, trapped in an endless loop of prescriptions and treatments that never end. Take insulin, a century-old discovery that should be cheap and universal, yet its price is jacked up to ruthless heights. Why? Because they know you have no other choice. The scarcity they've engineered of affordable medicine, of genuine cures, keeps you compliant and keeps their profits soaring. But the pharmaceutical companies don't work alone. Health insurance is their accomplice, tying you to jobs you hate and loading you with medical debt you'll never escape. In many countries, losing your job means losing your healthcare. In others, you're forced into plans that barely cover the basics while draining your wallet with co-pays, premiums, and deductibles. This isn't a broken system. It's a system that's working exactly as designed. By making healthcare inaccessible or precarious, they ensure your obedience. Who dares revolt when a doctor's visit can bankrupt you? In this dystopia, the wealthy enjoy concierge medicine, cutting-edge treatments, and access to the best doctors money can buy. The rest of us are left with overcrowded hospitals, overworked staff, and underfunded public health systems. Rural areas, in particular, are abandoned to fend for themselves, with hospitals closing at alarming rates and access to specialists virtually non-existent. The result? Your health and your lifespan are determined not by biology or personal choices, but by your zip code and bank account. It's brutal. The elite at the top get the finest care to maintain their grasp on power, while the rest of us scramble for scraps, reminding us that our place in this hierarchy is never secure. Your health is their leverage. They know that when you fear for your life, you'll pay any price and obey any rule. But now that you see their hand, are you ready to stop playing their game? Now you might think education is your ticket out, a path to knowledge, freedom, and upliftment. Think again. Just like healthcare, education has been co-opted to serve a different master. Instead of cultivating critical thinkers, it's become a factory line, turning out compliant workers programmed to obey, not question. Let's start with the most blatant example of education as a control mechanism: student loans. The cost of higher education has skyrocketed, far outpacing inflation, wages, or common sense. Why? Because they've turned learning into a business, and you're the product. Student debt isn't just a financial burden, it's a life sentence. Graduates spend decades chained to their loans, forced to prioritize job security over passion, obedience over risk-taking. By pricing education out of reach for most, and tying access to mountains of debt, they ensure that even the privilege of learning comes with strings attached. And what are you paying for? A piece of paper that increasingly means nothing. Jobs that once required a high school diploma now demand a bachelor's degree. Jobs that once demanded a bachelor's now require a master's. Credential inflation has created a system where the bar for employment is constantly raised, ensuring you spend more money and more years chasing qualifications that leave you overeducated and underemployed. And this isn't an accident. It's a way to keep you on the treadmill, perpetually striving but never arriving. The more hoops you have to jump through, the less likely you are to question why the hoops exist in the first place. Take a closer look at what schools actually teach. Is it critical thinking, financial literacy, or problem solving? No. It's obedience to authority, rote memorization, and the glorification of the status quo. From a young age, you're conditioned to sit still, follow rules, and accept what you're told. The school system isn't designed to create innovators. It's designed to create workers, people who will dutifully serve the system without questioning it. History textbooks are sanitized, science is filtered through corporate interests, and alternative narratives are ignored or mocked. The result is a population that knows just enough to function in the system, but not enough to see through it. Standardized tests reward conformity and punish originality. There's only one right answer, one correct method, and if you dare think differently, you fail. It's a subtle but powerful form of conditioning. Learn to color inside their lines, or be left behind. The tests aren't for your benefit. They're a means of sorting who will comply and who must be sidelined. While the masses are fed outdated curriculums and programmed for mediocrity, the elite enjoy access to a completely different education system. Ivy League schools, private tutors, and exclusive networks ensure that their children remain at the top. These institutions don't just teach, they indoctrinate, preparing the next generation of rulers while ensuring the rest of us stay in the dark. Access to cutting-edge research, revolutionary technologies, or alternative perspectives? Forget it. Those are reserved for the elite, carefully guarded to prevent any disruption to the established hierarchy. Nowhere is the weaponization of education more obvious than in the global South. Underfunded schools, lack of resources, and rampant illiteracy keep billions trapped in cycles of poverty and exploitation. Multinational corporations swoop in, offering token donations, while extracting the wealth and labor of these communities. Education is dangled like a carrot, always just out of reach. Your mind is their battleground. By controlling what you learn and how you learn it, they shape not just your knowledge, but your perception of reality itself. They say work is dignity, that it brings security and purpose. But step back and look at the bigger picture. The job market isn't built to set you free. It's engineered to keep you running on a treadmill, always panting for breath and too drained to question why. In this system, work isn't a path to fulfillment. It's a tool of enslavement, a constant scramble where you're perpetually desperate for your next paycheck, terrified that if you slow down for even a moment, you'll be cast aside. Automation could have liberated you from mind-numbing tasks, granting time for creativity, rest, and true innovation. Instead, they've turned it into a weapon. As machines replace human labor, unemployment surges, wages stagnate, and you're told it's your own fault. You're unskilled or unadaptable. Universal basic income, meaningful retraining or fair redistribution of technological gains. Forget it. They'd rather let you drown than give you a life raft, because keeping you struggling means keeping you under control. They hype the gig economy as your golden ticket to flexibility, but it's a mirage. No benefits, no security, just an algorithm deciding if and when you can earn enough to scrape by. You're stuck hustling for scraps, watching profits flow upward while you grind through endless gigs with nothing to show but exhaustion. Call it what it is, exploitation, dressed up in shiny tech terms so you won't notice the chains. While living costs skyrocket, your paycheck remains frozen in time. The CEOs, shareholders, and big players rake in fortunes, raising their glasses to record profits. And you? You're told, that's just the market, as if this invisible force wasn't rigged to funnel wealth into their pockets. It's a rigged casino, and you're the one feeding the slot machines with your time, energy, and dreams. They whisper that if you just find your passion, work will never feel like work. But that's another lie. By making work central to your identity, they ensure you'll endure any indignity just to cling to the illusion of purpose. Most jobs don't exist to fulfill you. They exist to enrich them. The dream job narrative is bait to keep you chasing an ever-receding horizon. Deliberate scarcity in the labor market ensures you're not collaborating with fellow workers. You're competing against them. Immigration policies, outsourcing, and globalization are all manipulated to flood the market and keep wages low. Instead of questioning who set the rules, you fight each other for table scraps. Divide and conquer isn't just a historical tactic. It's their economic model. And just when you think it couldn't get worse, they've turned your workplace into a surveillance state. Cameras, productivity trackers, keystroke monitors, your every move is scrutinized to extract maximum value, while stifling dissent and creativity. Micromanagement isn't about efficiency. It's about control. The threat of joblessness hovers, keeping you pliant. You'll accept long hours, low pay, and abuse because the alternative, being cast into the void of unemployment, is too terrifying. Layoffs are a convenient reset button, a way to eliminate those who dare question the system. It's never been about fairness. It's always been about power. Your labor fuels their empire, but the system is designed to ensure you never rise above your station. It's a game you can't win, unless you change the rules. Money makes the world go round, or so they want you to believe. But the truth is, the financial system isn't designed to empower you. It's a cage, a mechanism for control that ensures wealth flows upward while the rest of us fight over scraps. Through debt, inflation, and manipulation, they've turned money into the ultimate weapon of compliance. Let's start with central banks, the shadowy institutions that control the global money supply. These entities, like the Federal Reserve, operate independently of governments but have the power to shape entire economies. How? By manipulating interest rates, controlling inflation, and deciding when to print money. Central banks don't exist to serve the public. They exist to protect the financial elite. When the economy falters, they bail out corporations and banks while leaving ordinary people to sink under waves of unemployment and foreclosure. The national debt isn't just a number. It's a noose around the necks of taxpayers, ensuring governments, and by extension, you, remain subservient to financial overlords. And inflation is one of their favorite tricks. When central banks print money to bail out corporations or fund wars, the value of your savings erodes. Prices rise, but wages don't, leaving you poorer with every passing year. It's a stealth tax, a way to rob you without you even realizing it. Meanwhile, the elites profit from surging asset values, watching their wealth multiply as yours evaporates. The money in your wallet has no intrinsic value. It's fiat currency, meaning it's backed by nothing but the government's promise. Unlike gold or other tangible assets, fiat money can be printed endlessly, making it highly susceptible to manipulation. This system benefits them, not you. By creating and controlling fiat currencies, they can orchestrate economic booms and busts at will. During crashes, they buy up assets at pennies on the dollar, while you lose everything. It's a rigged game designed to transfer wealth from the many to the few. And debt is their number one tool of enslavement. Whether it's student loans, credit cards, or mortgages, the system encourages you to borrow, borrow, borrow. Why? Because as long as you're in debt, you're under their thumb. You work longer hours, accept lower wages, and tolerate abuse, all to make those monthly payments. And let's not forget the national debt. Entire countries are shackled by loans from institutions like the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. These loans come with strings attached, austerity measures, privatization of public resources, and the stripping away of social safety nets. It's colonialism, by another name, a way to keep nations and their citizens forever dependent. As cash becomes obsolete, they're pushing us into a world of digital currency. Central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, promise convenience, but don't be fooled. These currencies are fully programmable and trackable, meaning they can control not just what you spend, but how you spend it. Imagine a world where dissenters have their accounts frozen, or where your social credit score dictates whether you can buy groceries. That's not science fiction. It's the future they're building. Digital currency isn't about modernization. It's about surveillance and control. Economic cycles of growth and recession aren't natural phenomena, they're engineered. The boom periods lull you into a false sense of security, encouraging you to take on more debt and spend recklessly. Then comes the bust, wiping out the middle class while the elites consolidate even more wealth. It's a rinse and repeat cycle designed to keep you vulnerable. Your money isn't yours. It's their tool to control you. The financial system is a maze, and every path leads to the same destination: your subjugation. They told you capitalism was about efficiency and innovation, but as public goods vanish into private hands, what's really happening is a colossal heist. Water, land, energy, healthcare, education, everything you need to survive and thrive is being parceled out to the highest bidder. The commons, once belonging to everyone, are now commodities, and you pay and pay, wondering how it all slipped away. Water is life, yet it's being stolen from under our noses. Corporations like Nestlé, Veolia, and Suez have cornered the market on water, privatizing rivers, lakes, and aquifers. They pump it out, bottle it, and sell it back to you for a profit, while leaving entire communities high and dry. But the theft doesn't end there. Around the world, governments are signing away water rights to private companies, often under the guise of efficiency or development. The result? Rising water bills, depleted resources, and, in extreme cases, outright water wars. This isn't scarcity. It's a manufactured crisis designed to turn a human right into a luxury. Think land is a safe investment? Think again. Multinational corporations and investment firms are buying up farmland, residential properties, and even entire neighborhoods at an alarming rate. They don't care about feeding the world or housing the population. They care about their power. Small farmers are being pushed off their land, replaced by industrial agriculture operations that degrade the soil and poison the environment. Meanwhile, in urban areas, gentrification displaces working-class families, replacing vibrant communities with sanitized playgrounds for the wealthy elite. And what about rural areas? Governments and corporations are pushing for smart cities, where populations are concentrated into dense urban centers. Why? Because it's easier to monitor and control people in tightly packed spaces than it is when they're spread across the countryside. The land left behind. That's reserved for the elites, of course. Even the air you breathe isn't safe. Carbon credits, once touted as a solution to climate change, have become a new frontier in privatization. Corporations buy up the rights to pollute, turning clean air into a commodity. Meanwhile, you're told to reduce your carbon footprint, while they continue business as usual. Energy is no different. Renewable energy projects, which should empower communities to generate their own power, are increasingly monopolized by the same companies that control fossil fuels. The message is clear. Even in the age of solar and wind, independence is not allowed. Privatization has turned healthcare into a nightmare. Hospitals, clinics, and even ambulances are being handed over to private companies that prioritize profits over patient care. The result? Skyrocketing costs, reduced access, and a system where your health is just another line item on a balance sheet. In developing countries, privatized healthcare systems often mean that only the wealthy can afford treatment. Public hospitals are underfunded, and millions are left to suffer or die from preventable diseases. Meanwhile, the wealthy get private hospitals and concierge medicine, a parallel world you'll never enter. Schools and universities follow the same script. Public institutions are starved of funds, while private ones rake in fortunes. Degrees become badges of privilege, not learning. And if you dare seek knowledge outside their approved channels, you face exorbitant fees or outdated textbooks that keep you misinformed and compliant. But even public universities, once bastions of affordable education, are now saddled with corporate partnerships, skyrocketing tuition, and a relentless focus on profit. Education is no longer about enlightenment. It's about extracting as much money as possible from students and their families. They justify all this theft with the mantra of efficiency. But ask yourself, efficient for whom? When services deteriorate and costs balloon, who's really winning here? Not you. Profits are extracted and funneled upward, leaving communities drained and desperate. This isn't progress. It's a return to feudalism, where everything you need must be bought back from those who stole it in the first place. Privatization is a slow-motion robbery, turning public wealth into private kingdoms. Privatization is theft. It's a heist that turns public resources into private profit, leaving the rest of us to fight over the crumbs. But imagine a world where every step you take, every word you whisper, every purchase you make is tracked, recorded, and stored. Now face the truth. This isn't some dystopian fantasy. It's the reality you're living in. Surveillance has become their most insidious weapon, allowing them to predict your next move before you even consider it. With eyes and ears everywhere, they fine-tune their influence over your thoughts, your actions, and your future. Your smartphone, your smart TV, your smart home, the very devices marketed as convenient upgrades to daily life, are nothing but Trojan horses of control. Every tap, every voice command, every online search feeds their data mills. Who profits from this ocean of personal information? Corporations, governments, and anyone who thrives by knowing your desires, fears, and weaknesses. Surveillance isn't here for your safety. It's here to ensure obedience. The more they know, the less you can resist. They tempt you with smart everything. Appliances, cars, even entire cities, promising ease and efficiency. But behind that polished facade lies a simple truth. These tools are designed to monitor and mold your behavior. Your thermostat reports your routines, your car's GPS logs every journey, and all this data circles back to those who shape the narrative. Autonomy? Try again. They're replacing your independence with a system that thrives on your submission. We entered the social media age believing we could connect, share, and express ourselves freely. Instead, we got a trap, an endless scroll that catalogues our hopes and fears, nudging our opinions toward their carefully engineered conclusions. The posts you see aren't random. The algorithms serve up exactly what keeps you hooked, distracted, and divided. With every click, you feed their data beast, making it stronger and yourself weaker. Walk down any city street, and you're likely to be captured by multiple surveillance cameras. From traffic lights to store entrances, cameras are ubiquitous, and increasingly, they're connected to facial recognition systems. These technologies can identify you in seconds, linking your face to a vast database of personal information. China's social credit system is the most extreme example, where facial recognition and surveillance are used to monitor and control citizens' behavior. But don't think for a second that this couldn't happen elsewhere. The infrastructure is already in place. All it takes is the right crisis to justify its full implementation. Wearable devices like fitness trackers and smartwatches collect data on your heart rate, sleep patterns, and activity levels. DNA testing services like 23 and Me analyze your genetic code. On the surface, these technologies seem harmless, helpful even. But ask yourself, who owns this data? And how could it be used against you? Imagine a world where your health data determines your insurance premiums or whether you qualify for a loan. Or worse, a world where dissenters are flagged through biological markers of stress or anxiety. This isn't paranoia. It's a very real possibility. This isn't just about control. It's about money. Your data is the new oil, a resource so valuable that entire industries are built around extracting and exploiting it. Tech giants like Google, Amazon, and Apple are the new kings of surveillance capitalism, profiting not just from selling you products, but from selling you. And don't think governments are just passive observers. They buy this data, subpoena it, or demand it outright under the guise of national security. The lines between corporate surveillance and state surveillance are so blurred that they're practically non-existent. You think you're a customer, but you're the product. And as long as they can watch your every move, they can steer you any way they choose. Surveillance is slavery. Every device, every platform, every convenience is a chain wrapped around your freedom. Fear, primal, overpowering, and easily manipulated. They don't need armed guards on every corner if your own mind keeps you locked in place. Fear of poverty, fear of crime, fear of disease, fear of isolation. They've refined it into a science. When you're terrified, you're predictable. And when you're predictable, you're easy to control. Homelessness, joblessness, and financial ruin. They've built a system where you're constantly teetering on the edge of disaster. The sight of homeless encampments on city streets isn't just a symptom of a broken system. It's a message. This could be you, it whispers. Keep working, keep complying, and maybe you'll avoid this fate. They manufacture this fear by ensuring the safety nets are either non-existent or riddled with holes. In a world where missing a single paycheck can spell catastrophe, you're forced to accept whatever scraps they offer, no matter how exploitative. Fear of losing your home, your job, or your health insurance keeps you silent, keeps you docile. Humans are social creatures, and the fear of being ostracized is deeply ingrained in us. They exploit this primal instinct by creating systems of inclusion and exclusion. Want to be part of the American dream? You'll need the right job, the right car, the right lifestyle. Don't have those things. You're a failure, an outcast, a cautionary tale. Social media amplifies this fear. The curated lives of influencers and celebrities make you feel like you're always falling short. Algorithms feed your insecurities, ensuring you keep spending, keep striving, keep conforming. It's not just about selling you products, it's about selling you a life that keeps you locked in their game. Without us, there would be chaos. That's the implicit promise of every government, every police force, every surveillance program. They stoke fears of crime, terrorism, and societal collapse to justify ever-expanding control. More cameras, more data collection, more militarized police. They sell you safety while quietly eroding your freedoms. The media plays a critical role here. Every sensationalized crime story, every terror alert, every doomsday headline feeds the narrative that you're in constant danger. Fear keeps you distracted, keeps you voting for the status quo, and keeps you from questioning who's really behind the curtain. Fear of punishment, losing your job, your social standing, your freedom, keeps most people from speaking out. Whistleblowers, activists, and dissenters face relentless attacks, both from the system and from the public. It has brainwashed. Cancel culture, smear campaigns, and legal intimidation are all tools to silence anyone who dares to challenge the narrative. But the fear of dissent isn't just external, it's internalized. You've been conditioned to self-censor, to second-guess your own thoughts and beliefs. They don't need to monitor every conversation if you've already internalized their rules. Fear is the perfect tool because it doesn't just paralyze, it directs. It makes you look to them for solutions, for protection, for salvation. Whether it's a government policy, a corporate product, or a media narrative, the solutions they offer are never about empowerment. They're about deeper dependence. Fear is the leash they use to keep you in line. But fear loses its power when you see it for what it is, a manipulation, a mirage. They say the pen is mightier than the sword, but in their hands, the pen is a scalpel carving out the truth they want you to see. Information should liberate, but they've turned it into chains. Through media, education, and culture, they control the narrative, shaping what you think is possible, normal, or worth striving for. The mainstream media is not a free press. It's a carefully controlled propaganda tool. Owned by a handful of massive corporations, it serves the interests of its masters, not the public. Whether it's the news you watch, the articles you read, or the entertainment you consume, it's all designed to keep you in line. Think about it. Why do so many news stories focus on fear, division, and sensationalism? Because a population in fear is easier to manipulate. A divided populace is less likely to unite against their common oppressors. And when you're distracted by celebrity gossip, sports scores, or manufactured outrage, you're not asking the real questions about who's pulling the strings. In the age of the internet, information should be freer than ever, but instead it's more tightly controlled. Under the guise of combating misinformation, tech giants and governments work hand in hand to suppress dissenting voices. Social media platforms shadow ban, demonetize, and deplatform anyone who challenges the official narrative. Fact-checking services, often funded by the very institutions they claim to monitor, serve as the gatekeepers of truth. But who decides what's true? When the facts inconveniently expose corruption or control, they're labeled conspiracy theories and buried. The indoctrination begins early. From the first day of school, you're taught to trust authority, obey rules, and accept the version of history they've curated for you. The curriculum isn't designed to teach critical thinking. It's designed to create compliant workers and unquestioning citizens. History books gloss over inconvenient truths about colonialism, corporate exploitation, and systemic oppression. Science is filtered through the lens of profit and corporate interests. Alternative perspectives, suppressed or ridiculed. By the time you graduate, your worldview has been carefully molded to align with the system. Even your leisure time isn't safe. Movies, TV shows, music, and video games are more than just entertainment. They're tools of conditioning. They subtly reinforce the values of the system: consumerism, competition, and individualism over collective action. Heroes are celebrated for working within the system, not challenging it. Villains are often portrayed as revolutionaries or radicals, sending a clear message: don't step out of line. Escapism also plays a crucial role. When you're hooked on binge-worthy shows or endless gaming sessions, you're not thinking about the injustices of the real world. They keep you pacified, entertained, and disengaged from meaningful action. You think you have options, different channels, different parties, different brands, but dig deeper, and it's all the same puppet show. They give you controlled opposition, safe rebels, and fake controversies. You debate meaningless details while never questioning the framework they built. Control the narrative, and you control the world. The power of the narrative machine lies in its ability to define what's normal, what's possible, and what's desirable. When they control the story, they control your perception of reality itself. The more you accept their narrative, the harder it becomes to imagine alternatives, let alone fight for them. The narrative machine is their greatest weapon, but it's also their greatest vulnerability. Truth is the antidote to their lies, and once you see the strings, you can't unsee them. You've seen the game for what it is: a system built on lies, fear, and control. Scarcity isn't a natural state, it's a weapon. Dependency isn't inevitable, it's engineered. The power they hold over you isn't because they're invincible. It's because you've been conditioned to believe you can't fight back. But here's what they dread you realizing. This entire system of control relies on your participation. The moment you opt out, question, and resist, their fortress begins to crumble. Step 1. Unplug from the machine. The first step in reclaiming your power is recognizing how deeply you're enmeshed in their systems. Every dollar you spend, every media source you trust, every institution you rely on, they're all part of the web. Begin by unplugging where you can. Diversify your information sources. Seek out independent journalists, alternative media, and voices that challenge the mainstream narrative. Learn to spot propaganda and question everything. Reduce your digital footprint. Use privacy-focused tools and platforms. Limit how much data you give to tech giants. Remember, your data is their power. Break free from debt. Easier said than done, but start small. Pay off what you can, avoid unnecessary loans, and resist the pressure to live beyond your means. Every dollar you don't owe is a dollar they can't use to control you. Step 2. Build local resilience. One of their greatest weapons is centralization of power, resources, and control. Counter this by focusing on local resilience. Support local businesses. Every dollar spent at a small business is a dollar that stays in your community, not in the hands of multinational corporations. Grow your own food. Even a small garden can reduce your dependence on industrial agriculture. Community gardens and co-ops are even better. Create local networks. Build relationships with neighbors, friends, and like-minded individuals. A strong community is harder to control. Step 3. Reclaim knowledge and skills. They've kept you dependent by stripping you of essential skills and hoarding knowledge. Take it back. Learn practical skills. Cooking, repairing, gardening, and basic first aid are empowering and reduce dependency on their systems. Educate yourself. Dive into suppressed histories, alternative science, and critical thinking. Knowledge is the first step toward liberation. Teach others. Share what you learn with your community, creating a ripple effect of empowerment. Step 4. Challenge the narrative. Their greatest strength is controlling what you believe. Take that away, and their power crumbles. Speak out. Share your insights. Challenge mainstream narratives, and amplify voices that expose the truth. Create alternatives. Whether it's starting a blog, making a documentary, or building a local movement, every counter-narrative chips away at their control. Celebrate dissent. Support whistleblowers, activists, and truth-tellers who risk everything to expose corruption. Step 5. Demand systemic change. Individual action is powerful, but systemic change is essential. Organize, mobilize, and demand accountability. Push for decentralization. Advocate for policies that return power to local communities, whether it's energy production, food systems, or education. Fight for transparency. Demand open government, corporate accountability, and independent oversight of powerful institutions. Resist privatization. Protect public resources from being sold off to the highest bidder. Water, land, and energy belong to all of us. Step 6. Embrace courage over fear. Fear is their ultimate weapon, but courage is yours. When you refuse to be ruled by fear, you become unpredictable, uncontrollable, and unstoppable. Remember, fear thrives in isolation. Connect with others who see the game for what it is. Together, you're stronger. Every act of defiance matters. Whether it's refusing to buy into their consumerist culture, questioning authority, or simply helping someone in need, you're creating cracks in the system. Hope is rebellion. Believing in a better world isn't naive, it's revolutionary. This is your game now. Scarcity, fear, and control only have power as long as you let them. The system is vast, but it's not unbreakable. Piece by piece, step by step, you can dismantle it. You can reclaim your autonomy, your community, and your future. They want you to believe resistance is futile, but the truth is simple. The only way they win is if you don't fight back. Now go. Not as a pawn in their game, but as a player writing your own rules. And don't worry, this is just the start. This series on how they control you has 4 episodes ready for you right now, with 4 more on the way. If you don't want to miss the rest, make sure you're subscribed and have notifications turned on. Also, I'm curious, what's your favorite film or show that digs into these kinds of power dynamics? Mine is the Hated in the Nation episode of Black Mirror. Let me know yours in the comments, so I can see it sometime soon.